I'm sad. I'm gonna set my coffee in the morning.
All right, Sunday Assembly Pittsburgh, thank you so much for coming out. Yay! This is our 6th event, and we're gonna get started with our first 2 songs. So everybody, let's get on our feet and try to get some warmth in here. Let's dance in the streets.
Thanks for breaking the cold. We understand. We appreciate it.
All right, Martha and the Vandrows dancing in the streets. I'm going to teach you. They're going to dance for a while. I'm going to teach you the background parts before I start leading the regular parts. So if you just feel like doing the background part, this is the lazy person's job. Okay, ready? Just going to go like this. Dancing in the streets. Just try with me. Dancing in the streets. Dancing in the streets. Dancing in the streets. Okay, if you don't want to do that, if you're even lazier than that, you can just go. Try that with me.
Just so you know, we'll take volunteers who want to volunteer to lead songs. Just so you know, you can come rehearse with the band and lead a song if you like. This next one, it's everybody's favorite. It's hard for us not to play it because everyone sings it. Right? Sometimes in your life, we all have pain.
Thanks for preparing it. This is our 6th Sunday assembly, so we're pretty proud of that. Pretty proud, pretty awesome. I am Kara Hughes, and I am the host today. Good is great. I just kind of want to go over some Sunday assembly. Who is here for the first time? Can you raise your hand? Oh my God! Here we go. So I'm going to assume the rest you guys have been here before. So, we're going to go through these slides, a little bit about Sunday Assembly. What is it? It is a godless congregation that celebrates life. Our vision is to have one of these in every city and town that wants one. We want to help everyone find and fulfill their full potential. Now, we're going to get to our motto. Does anybody know what our motto is at Sunday Assembly? Anybody? Shout it out if you know it.
Live better. Help open.
Wonderful! Oh my gosh, we're incredible! Yes! Alright, so this is our Sunday Assembly charter. It's basically what we're all about. It's just some ideals behind it. We are 100% celebration of life. We have no doctrine. We have no deity. We're radically inclusive, one of my favorite things. And it's free to attend and not for profits. We have a community mission, we're independent, and we're here to stay. And we won't tell you how to live, which is like one of my favorite phrases to say. Like, can I live? Right?
What time you said one of our early meetings? Come as you are, leave as you were.
Exactly. That's right. Very powerful. All right. And remember, point number 1, Sunday Assembly is a celebration of the one life that we know we have. So thank you so much for coming out. All right. All right, and you guys can find us here. All right. So this next section, actually, we're having a reader, Jeff Cummings. He's an assembler. This is my favorite part because this is an all-volunteer group. So usually it is like members of our organization team. So we have an assembler that's coming up here. I know Anne kind of like kicked this off as doing our reading in December. So I'm really excited for Jeff to come up here. In honor of International Darwin Day, that was February 12th, we are going to read some passages from Charles Darwin. And this is going to be read by one of our assemblers, Jeff Cummings. All right, put your hands together.
Hello. My name's Jeff Cummings, and let me...
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Okay, I will. Just to keep it brief, not to scare anybody, but my dad was a pastor, so he's no longer with us, but he was a good dad. So a very conservative evangelical Presbyterian minister, and we had some very good years. But the last 5 years of his life, when he accepted that I wasn't what he thought I was going to be, and I actually was for 10 years a commissioned minister in the Episcopal Church, not a priest, but an evangelist. But I'm proud to be here as a godless person now. I have repented and found my new life. And I heard years ago that 2 comedians started a godless congregation in London. And I was thinking, is this a joke? And I was waiting for you guys to come. And then my friend Nick Posey said, Jeff, have you heard about Pittsburgh Sunday Assembly? And I said, I'm going to go. This is, I think, my third time. So I'm happy to be able to read for you. The earthquake must be, to everyone, a most impressive event. The earth, considered from our earliest childhood as the type of solidity, has oscillated like a thin crust beneath our feet. And in seeing the labored works of a man in a moment overthrown, we feel the insignificance of his boasted power. From the Voyage of the Beagle, the second one as well. I have stated that in the 13 species of ground finches, a nearly perfect gradation may be traced from a beak extraordinarily thick to one so fine that it may be compared to that of a warbler.
Hashtag finches.
The descent of man. We are not here concerned with hopes or fears, only with truth, as far as our reason permits us to discover it. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, not those who know much, who so positively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science. Excuse me. As man advances in civilization, and tribes are united into larger communities, the simplest reason would tell each individual that he ought to extend his social instincts and sympathies to all members of the same nation, though personally unknown to him. This point being once reached, there's only an artificial barrier to prevent his sympathies extending to the men of all nations and races. On the origin of species. One general law leading to the advancement of all organic beings, namely, multiply, vary, let the strongest live, and the weakest die. For the shield may be as important for victory as the sword or spear. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive, slight modifications, my theory would be absolutely break down. But I can find no such case. I think it inevitably follows that as new species in the course of time are formed through natural selection, others will become rarer and finally extinct. The forms which stand in closest competition with those undergoing modification and improvement will naturally suffer most. A grain in the balance will determine which individual shall live and which shall die, which variety or species shall increase in number, and which shall decrease or finally become extinct. The autobiography of Charles Darwin. The loss of these tastes, a taste for poetry and of music, is a loss of happiness and may possibly be injurious to the intellect and more probably to the moral character by enfeebling the emotional part of our nature. The expression of emotion in man and animals. Blushing is the most peculiar and most human of all expressions. It is always advisable to perceive clearly our ignorance. The Life and Letters of Charles Darwin. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. To kill an error is as good a service, and even better sometimes, than the establishing of a new truth or fact. And in closing, here are 3 Charles Darwin quotes that exemplify the Sunday Assembly motto very well: live better, hope often, wonder more. And again, I want to give credit to Bill for going through all of the works of Charles Darwin, one by one, page by page, and coming up with this amazing collection of quotations.
Not quite, but
Oh, okay.
a lot of the books I had to sift through.
Oh, yes, you did, yes.
I did read The Beagle years ago and On the Order.
Well, you have one.
None of these are from memory.
Okay. Live better. If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week. Help often. The following proposition seems to me in a high degree probable, namely that any animal whatever, endowed with well-marked social instincts, the parental and filial affections being here included, would inevitably acquire a moral sense or conscience as soon as its intellectual powers had become as well or nearly as well developed as in man. For firstly, the social instincts lead an animal to take pleasure in the society of its fellows, to feel a certain amount of sympathy with them, and to perform various services for them. Wonder more. The weather is quite delicious. Yesterday, after writing to you, I strolled a little beyond the glade for an hour and a half and enjoyed myself. The fresh yet dark green of the grand Scotch firs, the brown of the catkins of the old birches with their white stems, and a fringe of distant green from the larches made an excessively pretty view. At last I fell asleep on the grass and awoke with a chorus of birds singing around me and squirrels running up the trees and some woodpeckers laughing, and it was as pleasant and rural a scene as I ever saw, and I did not care 1 penny how any of the beasts or birds had been formed.
Awesome job. Thank you so much for coming up here and volunteering to read for us. We do need volunteers, so if you're not scared, come up and see one of us. Jill, namely, I think she's the content coordinator. So next up, we have our speaker today. Today, I'm really excited to hear what this guy has to offer, because I'm going to read you guys his bio, and it's pretty intimidating. So, Dr. Charles E. Jones. He is a lecturer at the University of Pittsburgh, Department of Geology and Planetary Science. He's raised in Wisconsin. That's how you say it, right? And is fond of cats. He has a BS in geology from Stanford University, right? He has a DPhil in geology from Oxford University. Just so you know, a DPhil is the same as a PhD. Oxford just likes to be different. And he has had stints at University of Michigan. I get a lot of feedback on my mic. Okay. He's had stints at the University of Michigan and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And he's been at Pitt since 2000, and he's still fond of cats. So without any further ado, let's put our hands together for Dr. Charles E. Jones.
Can you hear me if I don't use the mic? A little closer to the screen? Okay. Oh, for the video, right. I just like to be able to gesture. So, first thing I'll say is, Darwin, what an awesome guy. I'm not a big fan of biographies, but there's one by Desmond Moore, and I forget the second author. It's too close to the speaker. If I stand over here more. And he had just such an interesting life, and he so often got sick. Yet he just kept working and working. So he on the one hand he had a silver spoon. He was born with, he had money, so he didn't have to get a job. On the other hand, he really worked through a lot of adversity, and he's really an amazing guy. So it's a biography I can hardly recommend. Okay, I should go on what I'm here to do, right? So, whoops, I'll make sure I don't hit too many buttons. So I know very little about this organization, and I came up with this topic about 5 seconds thinking, so I hope you guys like it. So we'll check this out here. So first of all, a little bit about evolution. It's often portrayed as having this inevitable sense of progress. We start with primitive, become very advanced, and so this is an icon of evolution. We start as chimpanzees and go all the way up to man. There's no woman up there to man. And these are going to be a little bit weird. And here's one that goes a little bit back further in time, a little more accurate there, where we start out as fish, and then we end up throwing all of our trash for fish. So what are we going to do? But it's still man. We'll see if we can do later. Oh, look at that. This one goes way back. It starts out with RNA world in the upper left, and it ends up with woman. Yay. I had to search for this. It was not easy to find. So there we go. A little more balance in this thing. There we go. But, regardless of the icon, it's commonly thought of as evolution sort of progresses, and of course it's going to end up with us, because we are the acme of everything. And I remember growing up, reading a dinosaur book, and the dinosaurs go extinct, the mammals take over. It was seen as a certain inevitability. I mean, in those days they hadn't figured out there's an asteroid or anything like that, but because mammals were warm-blooded, and we take care of our young, we nurse our young, and we make sure that they go out in the world with the maximum advantages. Whereas like sea turtles, they'll lay like 200 eggs and they leave. And most of those sea turtles are food. They don't even make it to the ocean. And we're also smart. We're much smarter than mammals as a whole than non-mammals. So this tour we're going to do today is just to see how inevitable were mammals. Were we really inevitable or not? You might already know the answer, but hopefully you'll like some of the tour anyways. So this presentation started out in Keynote on the Mac, and then it was converted to PowerPoint, and then sent across the web, and then I guess it was PowerPoint on the Mac, and then PowerPoint on the PC, so it's a little, I bet it's working.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Scroll bar allows you to go backwards and forwards too. Just
Okay.
the button will only go forward.
All right, right. So anyways, so mammals first appeared in the fossil record in the late Triassic. So keep that in mind. Late Triassic. There's sort of the whole fossil record up there, and we come in early part of the Mesozoic. And we'll just take a tour, see what some of these guys look like. So the very first ones here, Morganukadon, and this is clustered on. They were basically small shoe-like creatures. They were from their skeleton, they were very agile climbers and probably could leap from branch to branch. From their teeth, they were sharp little pointy teeth, so they were probably grabbing small arthropods or worms. And like all mammals, our teeth close very precisely. So if you ever try to give a cat a pill, the fangs are what you worry about because they're obvious. But what the worst of all possible outcomes is when you put the pill down their mouth, then they turn their head and they bite down because their back molars, called carnassials, when they close, they shear past one another, designed for slicing through flesh. So it hurts like hell. And so only mammals have these really precisely closing teeth. And here's a rendition of one, little hairy, little ugly kind of guy, I guess. Interestingly, the brains of early mammals right away became larger in the areas related to the sense of smell and the sense of hearing. And a lot of the skeletons of these guys, when we have the skulls preserved, they have relatively large eye sockets. And so the enhanced sense of smell and hearing and large eyes suggest that these guys were nocturnal. So we hung out in the dark. And interestingly, a little side, you're probably aware that cats and dogs are colorblind. Well, it turns out that nearly all mammals are colorblind, the exceptions mainly being most primates. Most primates can see in color, but all other mammals tend to not see in color. And of course, at night, you can't see in color either, right? So if you spend 150 million years in the dark, there's no selection pressure to maintain color vision. If you go to amphibians and reptiles, and I think even fishes, they see in color. So we did lose color. It's most likely that our ancestors could see in color. Anyways, this graph here on the far left, it says Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, and then finally Cenozoic. We live in the Cenozoic, age of the mammals. And the width of these little spindles is proportional to the total number of genera that's out there. And so you can see, especially in the Cretaceous, there's just a lot of genera out there. And even in the Jurassic, there's quite a few, lots and lots of Cretaceous. In the Cenozoic, you can see there's a fairly large extinction, but then the bottom, the Eutherians, those are the placental mammals, that's us. And down at the very bottom, the Metatherians are marsupials, not us. So it looks like the mammals were incredibly diverse. And that bullet has gone off the bottom there. I believe it's roughly, as of 2007, roughly, I think 270 or 240 genera of mammals were known in the Mesozoic, and about 340 of dinosaurs. So comparable diversity in the Mesozoic for mammals as dinosaurs, which maybe might surprise you. But it turns out that in terms of the morphological diversity, they're not that diverse. So most mammals had a very narrow range of body types. They were small and generally looked like a mouse or a rat or a squirrel or a possum. That body type dominated all this large number of genera. They were all very similar in this basic body type. And most had sort of a generalized diet, either generalized insectivore diet or generalized herbivory or generalized omnivore, not hyper-specialized. But there is one guy, if you ever met him, he used to be at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. If he introduced himself, he'd always go, "My name is Lowell." He's now at Chicago's Field Museum, so our loss, I guess. But his whole career was spent, he specializes in Mesozoic mammals, and he's found these amazing specimens that expand our knowledge of the range of diversity of body types. So let's see what he found. So on the bottom, so the left-hand column is the one we just saw, and the right one are you guys. So, and there's geologic time, Jurassic on the bottom, Cretaceous, and then finally modern at the top. You can see these things a little bit bright in here. So in the bottom, Jurassic, he found one species that looks a lot like a beaver, but beavers are rodents. So it's not so, but it had an aquatic lifestyle, probably swam, and so it lived like a beaver. Still a rodent, but not literally a rodent, but similar to it. And also like sea otters. So also the guy at the very bottom would have had a lifestyle somewhat like a sea otter, so a semi-aquatic creature running around the water eating meat. And this bigger guy here, it says 500, 800 grams, less than 2 pounds. So still small. We're not talking big yet. So So now the left-hand column is what we just saw. The right-hand column is a raccoon at the top, and then something that's kind of cool. We're now in carnivores and scavengers. The guy that's, get the word out there, Repenomamus, these things are hard to say, weighed up to 22 pounds. So that's huge. That's the biggest mammal known, 22 pounds. And the fossils that have been found, it ate baby dinosaurs. Baby dinosaurs, the cute ones. Oh well. But still not, I mean, you know, it's basically like a large opossum. It's not totally different. And now at the very bottom there's a little dude there that had very strong forelimbs and if you know, fossorial lifestyle means burrowing, digging in the dirt. So it would have lived like an armadillo or an aardvark, so very powerful limbs to dig, and sort of elongated snout. I'm not sure if it's eating insects or not. I'm not sure what its diet is, but I keep going forward a little prematurely. Let's see, scroll back like that. Oh, is that good? Oh, no, I've just been going forward. This way. Is that good? Oh, yeah. The little things please me. My remote has a left and a right. I know what to do. This is like, what do we do? Other ones we found, there's a bunch of tree climbing insectivores that would have been roughly analogous to a tree shrew, which is actually a very close relative of all primates, as far as modern organisms go. So very adept at climbing and eating bugs. And he's even found, it's a Jurassic flying squirrel. But again, squirrels are rodents. I mean, the flying squirrels are not rodents, but you know, that body type is very similar. So we've now seen the total fantastic diversity of mammals during the 150 million years that they lived in the Mesozoic. Small, generally like rodents. There we go. See if I can make this go. So it turns out that the diversity of mammals that's shown here in this graph is reflected mainly in their teeth, especially their molars. So molars on mammal species is analogous to fingerprints on human individuals. So the molars are very distinctive, and they like fingerprint individual genera and species. So if you were a mammal paleontologist specializing in the Mesozoic, you would be really good with teeth. You have to love teeth. There are whole papers written with just the teeth. One was just recently published, like in the last month. They think they found some primate teeth from some deposits in India, which is actually pretty exciting. Because the primates, it seems like they evolved here in North America. So if they actually evolved in India, that's a sort of radically new idea. And I think they've got like 3 molars. This whole paper is based on 3 molars. That's all they know about it. But they look like primate molars. So there you go, teeth. And a lot of the names, like it says Morganecodons at the top, and Docodons, and then there's Eutriconodons. The dot means teeth. The multituberculous refers to the shape of their teeth. So there we go. The ones that don't have teeth in their name tend to be either living lineages or ones that are closely related to living things. So the Metatherians or the marsupials, Eutherians, that one's closely related. There's the monotremes up there if you guys like your uphill platypi. Who doesn't? They're cool. Okay. Whoops. So now we'll do dinosaurs. So I'm glad the kids are still here. As the mammals just bored you to death. But now we'll do a little bit of mammals. So there's some mammals up here. And when do the dinosaurs appear? They appear, right at the same time. On my animation, they came down and went boom, and a bunch of dust came out. PowerPoint. So it turns out that dinosaurs and mammals appear in the fossil record almost exactly the same time. We're there together at the starting blocks. On your mark, get set, evolve. And we've seen what the mammals did. They moved into their parents' basement. They were like nothing. They're nocturnal, they ate bugs, dug in holes in the dirt. Like, not very much. What the dinosaurs do? Well, the dinosaurs were so motivated to evolve. I mean, the dinosaurs exploded evolution, and they really are spectacular. So I'm sure you all know a fair amount about the dinosaurs, but hopefully I can rekindle an enthusiasm for these creatures because they're cool. So the pterosaurs, way over here, right up there, the pterosaurs. Pterosaurs are very closely related to dinosaurs. They're not quite dinosaurs. They don't have all the dinosaur features, but they're very closely related. The dinosaurs were so keen to evolve that they evolved to flight even before they were dinosaurs. How's that for impressive? Uh-oh, I think it's going the wrong way. So that's amazing. And not only did they evolve flight once with the pterosaurs, but again, there's another family tree that goes up with the theropods, like the T-Rex-like guys. That's where the birds came from. Dinosaurs evolved flight twice, independently. How's that for cool? The very earliest dinosaurs came out as like they were theropods, so the bipedal guys with the little arms up front. And so Coelophysis is there standing next to the person. They were contemporaries. So Coelophysis was maybe about this tall and roughly that long, whereas the mammals were 10 centimeters long at the same time. Tiny. So the earliest mammals started out small. Actually, their ancestors were dog-sized, so they just started out small. And the dinosaurs started out relatively large. And early on, you can see the two guys on the bottom, they evolved these weird, flanges, crests on their skulls. So either sort of one or two. Like, how did they do that? Think about it. How would we evolve a boing on our head? What the hell? What mutations are allowing this to take place? I mean, it really boggles the mind. What's the advantage? There's speculation that maybe they were for threats or for mate attraction. Usually, if there's weird things in the modern world, it's because of sexual selection. So the male cardinal's bright red. That's stupid, but he's a target. There's birds that have extra long tails that actually makes it harder for them to fly away, but that's what the females want. So that's what they It's all about mate selection. So maybe females found this to be hot, but I'm not sure if they're sexually dimorphic. You'd have to find sexually dimorphic fossils to be sure. So the females looking like one wing, the males have all right. So here's a lot of the theropods are not all that diverse in form. So that if you saw that, you go, oh, it's just like an Allosaurus or a T-Rex, but this one that happens to be Ceratosaurus. And here's the Allosaurus, the classic middle to early Jurassic form. Here's T-Rex, and so by T-Rex, he's got little tiny shriveled up arms. They're probably vestigial, like he couldn't do anything. Maybe he could scratch his. That's about it. So he didn't need him because he had a huge skull and he could just grab things and maybe hold him down with his foot, rip the head off, and then they would gulp it down. No manners. Here's one from Australia. Just gotta say hi, Southern Hemisphere. There's that little girl about to get kicked. But here's one that's pretty bizarre. This is one of the original fossils were found by a German in North Africa, and then it was bombed during World War II, so it was lost, but now they've got other bits. And so he's got, the little spines coming off, the vertebrae sort of extended on this guy, and he's got a skull that looks a little bit more like an alligator. So there's something a little different from the theropods. Deinonychus up there, I always mispronounce it. Deinonychus, I get the accent right. Was a very quick little guy, and he has enough features in his skeleton where it was the first time where, in modern times, where they went, yeah, it looks like really dinosaurs evolved into birds. And so, the theropods are the guys that gave rise to the birds. So if you were to compare the detailed anatomy of Deinonychus and Archaeopteryx, they share a lot of similarities. So that's, so okay, they're relatively conservative evolutionary speaking, but they did derive with the birds. So that's good. Oh, that turned out terrible. It looks so good on my machine. I'm crying. This is Charles R. Knight, which they have there's an exhibit in the Carnegie Museum of his art. He was active a while ago. And it shows two theropods jumping at each other like cats at play. But if you weigh 2 tons and you try this, the bones just can't handle it. So it's very responsible. You're going to break a lot of bones and die. So they're like teenagers. So another lineage of dinosaurs that started right out in late Jurassic are the prosauropods. So they're just immediate ancestors of the sauropods. And you can see in this guy, he's relatively small. He's 7 meters, so that's relatively small. I'm 2 meters tall, roughly, almost, just about to here, 2 meters. So, that many times bigger bigger than me. You can see his back legs are quite a bit longer than his front legs, so there's still sort of traces of his bipedal ancestry evident there. And of course, the sauropods are really famous for being large, really big. The long-necked dinosaurs, long tail, big, massive body, elephantine kind of legs. That's what they're well known for. But they did do some extravagant things. So this is a sauropod, a couple sauropods that had a bunch of bony plates in their skin and little sort of, I don't know if you call them spines coming out, those little pointy things. And what's interesting about that to me anyways, and I don't know where these things precisely grew in their flesh, but just being an amateur biologist, I had high school biology freshman year. That's it. So just ignore everything I say. I'm obviously a moron. But it turns out that bones, most of our bones grow in our mesoderm, in the interior parts of our flesh, but our skull bones grow in skin tissue. So our skull bones originate in separate tissues from the rest of our skeleton. Of course, they integrate nicely, but that's where they originate. So the dinosaurs seem to have had the ability to grow bony material in their skin that they just like ran with. And it's kind of, again, you're like, how did they do this? What mutations allowed us to do that? I mean, they did have scales, which is sort of a different thing, but I don't think these are developments of scales. But this is where you got to get a dinosaur guy here. But it's quite extravagant how they just started growing all these things all over their body. Again, what selection pressures would do this? It's quite amazing. So the thyreophores, Stegosaurus is the famous one of these guys. And so, of course, Stegosaurus is roughly the early to middle Jurassic. But even the earlier forms up on the upper left had a bunch of bony plates growing in the skin. And so the Stegosaurus is like, hey, I'm going to make these guys like, instead of just little discs sort of embedded in the skin, I'm going to make them stick up. Like, how do they do that? And just for fun, I'm going to make spikes at the end. I mean, it is crazy, isn't it? That they were able to do this. How did they do it? Here's a guy, we're looking at his whole skeleton is studded in these external bony plates. I mean, it's insane what they did. And remember the mammals, what are they doing? And the dinosaurs like, we're evolving like mad. So the ankylosaurs, I mean, bony plates all over the body, armored, little spiky things on his back, and I'm still not sure if, I learned initially that those back things on the tail is like a club for whacking, and then some people like could sponge you up. Oh, that's settled right now. Maybe there's a dinosaur person here. No, I was hoping back there. Yeah, gotta get them going on the dinosaurs. They'll know more than me about heartbeat. So these guys are just amazing. Look at the guy on the upper left there. I mean, just this interlocking mosaic of bony plates that just all over the skin. And turtles, by the way, evolved these things completely independently of the dinosaurs. They're a different branch altogether. And then Ankylosaur on the left. I mean, can you imagine going shopping and rubbing up against him and John Deere? All the spikes in there. Oh, well, they had tiny brains. So they weren't very smart, but really good at armor plating. It's good to... They're probably happy, right? So the ornithopods. So these guys were bipedal herbivores, and the iguanodons, hadrosaurs are pretty well known for people that like dinosaurs. And they weren't all that, they started out small and bipedal, but they also, by then, they get really quite large and end up as quadrupeds, going down on all fours, which is where the plants are growing, so it makes sense they would do that. These guys were not extravagant in their body armor, but instead they put all their energy into weird things on their skulls. Again, you're like, what are they thinking? Why do they do that? Trying to make people. There we go. This is from Wikipedia. It turns out there's a whole community of like paleo nerds, artists who draw really quite amazing reconstructions of not just dinosaurs, which everyone kind of knows about, but name an obscure animal from the distant past. Like an osteolepiform. It's a lungfish. Someone will have drawn a detailed reconstruction. It's actually biologically pretty good. It's impressive. They're all out there.
The colors are accurate?
No, I have no idea the colors are. But the shapes are accurate, and the colors are fanciful. They're just having fun with their colored pencils. You got Prismacolor, let's use them. So some of these things on their heads were solid, some were hollow, and possibly were helped to make them extra distinctive sounds like ooh, ooh, knows what they were doing. I have no idea. But it says groovy at the bottom. Totally groovy at these two. So here's the Parasaurolophus, which is one of those where they think, oh, maybe it was like, sort of a resonating chamber on top of its head. It probably made its brain tingle. They become addicted to the sound. And just a range of morphology. Some of these guys are really, really huge. And you can imagine it would be good then to walk around on all four legs because the plates are on the ground. There we go. Remember these guys? So the pachycephalosaurs. They got this armor-plated crest and then all these little spiky things all around. 20% of them have injuries consistent with the fact they're butting heads together, but they're not doing like a ram will just go bam, direct contact and really bang the hell out of each other. These guys couldn't do that with that dome in that shape. That would be the worst shape to do that. You want it to be more flattened so they could withstand the big impact. Instead, they did more like they're doing on the bottom where they're sort of butting heads side to side. So they think they would do that kind of activity because why not? That's how you get initiated into a fraternity, right? Amazing the way you go. So here's a bunch of drawings of these guys showing some of the range and the shapes and the sizes. And the one on the upper right is playing Quidditch. You see, it's got the snitch. Sometimes you find these creatures and they're with sort of anime characters. So the one on the lower right probably would not do that because that would probably kill it, crush its skull. But here, look at these guys, just the variations on the theme. They're like, how do you, like the various horns out the back, how does that work? How do they evolve that? I mean, it really mystifies me. I mean, mammals are easy to understand in terms of evolution because we're so conservative, really. And it's easy to imagine intermediate steps for elephants or whatever you want to talk about. But the dinosaurs, like, how the hell did they do this? I mean, it really is amazing to me. So here's a Triceratops, another one. And again, we all know Triceratops. But you think about, well, how would you start extending a flange out the back of your skull and going out and this thing over the back of your neck and then the horns coming out the front? How does that evolve? How do they do that? It's a giant mystery to me. The one on the top, it's an animation, it should be working, but it always makes me want to sing the Patsy Cline song about going out walking after midnight. It kind of strolls around just the way it is. It's a good thing because then I'd sing some more. I have a cold, my throat's not so good, but even so, my singing is never good. A little washed out here in the light, but these are all relatives of, they're all ceratopsians, relatives of Triceratops. And look at all the freakish shapes they've got going there. I'm going to move away from the microphone again. I have to. So you can see here, two horns up high, the big hollow spot, and two horns that shield kind of like Triceratops. This guy, this looks almost like little antelope horns. Up here again. I mean, look at the variation of these guys. These guys are amazing. I mean, wow, how did they do this? So they don't really know exactly what they're used for. I learned, it's for protecting the neck from like a T-Rex, for example. But it may have also been used in thermal regulation because not all of them were completely bony, so you could flush a bunch of blood up there and radiate the heat out more efficiently. Or you could flush them bright colors and then it'd be sexual selection like, ooh, honey. Oh, he's got red. I'm going to go with him. Who knows? We don't know. Yeah, just the variation in the shapes, in all the different horns, different shapes. I mean, it really is stunning what these guys are up to. And remember, the mammals, they're not doing anything. They are so boring. They're this. Look at the contrast. They're efficient. They're not wasting energy on frivolous bones. Why would I put all this energy in the calcium phosphate? It's going to make fur. Very soft. And it's flattering. So why not? It's flattering. Anyways, so the dinosaurs just went bananas with their evolution, and the mammals just did not. 150 million years. With no sign of them doing anything that would indicate that they're going to be ready to take over the world. Nothing at all. Of course, then this happens, right? 150 million years, and then splash, this big asteroid comes out of nowhere and hits in the Gulf of Mexico. Or if you don't like the asteroid hypothesis, there's huge flood basalts that erupt in India, but at exactly the same time, which is kind of a weird coincidence. But one thing or another, There seemed to have been a massive environmental disturbance. And what happened, it turns out, is that all animals bigger than about 10 kilograms, about 22 pounds, went extinct. So if you picture a T-Rex running around, you know, like if something really, if you throw up a big cloud of darkness or a bunch of acid rain kills a bunch of vegetation, and the herbivores go down, and like the T-Rex needs lots of food, and so then he's large. So the ones that survived were the smaller guys, and the only exception to the size thing is the crocodiles, by the way, but it turns out they're young, they can stay small for a long time and eat fish, and so that might be why they survive. But it's the small animals can live on insects, they can live on seeds, and of course then they can live on things that eat the insects and the seeds. So you can have sort of this food chain of the small that sort of managed to make it through this crisis. So since Darwin is so important, here's my little bit of evolution other than just like, woo! So dinosaurs probably kept mammals small because if you want to evolve a new species, it's really handy to have sort of an empty ecological niche. A niche, I should say. A niche, whatever you want to say. And so if you picture one population, they're really well adapted for some setting, wherever they are. And then maybe some population manages to go off to some area that's a little bit geographically different. And it's not the perfect environment for them, but they can make a living there. They can survive. Now, if there's no other competitors there, they have the potential to survive long enough for natural selection to make them better adapted for that new spot. But if there's already competitors there, they stand very little chance of taking over. So it'd be hard for a mammal like, hey, I'm going to start eating big things. It's hard for them to get out there because the dinosaurs already have that role. So that's probably why mammals stayed small. And the bullet that would have appeared below that is, so then you think, oh man, we were just kept down by the dinosaurs. We're such losers. But you can also flip that around, which is that if the dinosaurs had how small could they get? Well, they're the birds, they were small flying around. But as far as the ones walking around on the ground, most of them were not small. They're, I think the smallest one's down here a little bit, but in general they were fairly large. So if you're a dinosaur trying to get small, well, there's already a bunch of small animals in those niches. You got lizards, you got snakes, amphibians, and you got all these mammals. So, like at night, the mammals are all eating all the seeds, and during the day, the birds are eating all the seeds. How's a dinosaur going to take over that niche? So, while the dinosaurs may have kept us small, we may have kept them big. And the asteroid comes, and they die. So, 150 million years, no sign of any evolutionary innovations that suggest that they are going to take over. They're just staying small and in the dark. And the dinosaurs were really, really spectacular, as you guys already know. And so the mammals came to dominate the Earth for two big reasons, which are hidden off the bottom of the screen. They all have to do with chance. One is the chance impact of an asteroid, and the other is they happen to be small. If our ancestors had been big, we probably would have snuffed it and never taken over the Earth. If the asteroid hadn't come, there's no sign that we ever would have become intelligent. How long have I been going on? I'm always slower when...
You're good. You only have 2 more slides left after this.
I do. I know it's supposed to be ended. For 150 million years, rodent-like things. And then with I'm just going to go over away from the microphone. Sorry, I have to keep moving. This is the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary when all the dinosaurs died. This is 15 million years later. So within 15 million years of the dinosaurs dying out, after 150 million years of nothing, there's amazing evolutionary radiation of the major groups. And so the dinosaurs died, all these ecological niches are empty. And now you have the opportunity to evolve and fill these niches. So, the marsupial, or the monotreme is represented by the platypus. They're already there, and the platypus wasn't, but other marsupials, other monotremes. Marsupials we're just ignoring because they live in Australia mostly. In South America, we got the awesome. So looking at the placentals, so 50 million years of nothing, and we get anteaters come out. And they have very highly elongated faces. They lose most of their teeth because they don't need them. Very powerful digging claws. You have rabbits. So cute. You gotta love the lemurs. The pikas, one of the best animals out there, the rock pikas. It's worth a trip to the Rocky Mountains just to see the rock pikas. Rodents, which are the most diverse species of all the mammals. They're over half the species are rodents. And a large fraction are bats, by the way. And then primates, so our ancestors. The flying squirrels. That's a different group than, like, I think Pennsylvania flying squirrels. Anyway, I should look that up. Bats. 150 million years, we're just like running around in the dark. And all of a sudden we start flying. It's kind of incredible, isn't it? We start flying. Carnivores, of course, there were meat-eating mammals before, but the lineage that gives rise to modern carnivores starts within that 50 million year interval. The ancestors of the camels. So camels, and these are the artiodactyls that include cows and I think hippos. And then closely related to those are the whales. 150 million years of doing nothing. All the big guys down the ocean, and like, hey, let's be whales. I mean, it's kind of incredible how you adapt. Just be a whale. I have a lecture on that. Horses, the pistodactyls, the ungulates. Elephants, even elephants come in. You know, the ancestral elephants in this 15 million year period. So the only one of this whole list here down at the very bottom are seals. They take a little longer, but not so motivated. And it's possible that that's out of date. I didn't look up specifically. These things have been extending back in time when people discovered things. So, there's nothing to suggest that we ever would be here if it wasn't for that asteroid and the fact that our ancestors were small. I don't know what the last slide says, but that's, I think, probably a good spot to stop. We probably just wouldn't have been here.